Good morning traders, this is John Jacobs here for RMDTRADER and welcome to another episode of our weekly market overview. This week we'll be looking at the US dollar to Japanese yen as well as the US dollar to Swiss franc. And if you stay tuned, we will also look at a possible opportunity to re-enter the breakout that we've seen last week on the EURUSD. Just before we begin, I'd like to remind you that these videos would be uploaded every Monday morning at 7 o'clock sharp. So please subscribe and also remember to hit the alert button to get notified as soon as the videos goes live. And I'm going to let the disclaimer roll and see you in the charts. Starting with the dollar rand. As mentioned on our market overview video last week, we did indeed see some rand strength. Although we did not see the rand strengthen to the level that we hoped for, being the 17 rand level, but indeed we saw a slight pullback on Friday, where it would appear that we are currently consolidating, and from where we might see further strength to this 1695 level. With the South African lockdown also moving to level 3, and also more trade and retail being allowed to reopen, we might still see this drive towards this level. If for some reason we were to see more US strength, it's possible that we will see the 17 rand 95 to 18 level retested, after which we might either then see that move that we've been waiting for towards 1695, or perhaps even this diagonal level and also the 200 SMA on the 4-hour being retested. Looking at a Fibonacci retracement of this move, our 50 and also our 61.8 level will be sitting on 18 and 18 rand 20 respectively. So that would be our overhead resistance levels to keep an eye out for, and then as mentioned, the 1695-ish level being our lower target should the rand strengthen further. Moving to the EURUSD, as discussed on our market overview video last week, we can see that the breakout out of this consolidation has been quite aggressive, with price only finding some resistance on Friday at this R2 weekly pivot level, with price not making any new lower lows at this stage. Although I suspect that looking at our projected pivots for the week to come, as well as the new monthly pivot, there's definitely some opportunity for price to move back to this 1.10 level to perhaps retest this breakout before we see any moves going higher. It's also worth noting that our 1.10 level will also coincide with previous pivot levels as well as previous swing highs of last week. And looking at the economic calendar, we can see that on Monday we have the manufacturing PMIs. On Thursday we have an ECB monetary policy meeting, and then non-farm employment change and unemployment rates on Friday, which will have a large effect on price and volatility. So please keep an eye out for this 1.10 level in this week. If we were to see price reach this level, it might perhaps be a good opportunity to get back into this breakout if you were to have missed it last week, in taking the price higher towards the 1.2 and even higher levels. Should price break below the 1.10 level, it's possible that we will see a retest at this level of support. And if we just quickly draw that in, we can see that we do have some support on last week's pivot level at this let's call it the 1.09 level. That would be that will definitely offer us some support. And from here, it's also likely that we will see another move back higher. So at this stage, the 1.10 level definitely worth watching. Looking at the Australia dollar USD, after price attempted this second retest of the upper channel that we discussed on our video also last week, we did notice a brief breakout before price moved back into the channel, only to find support on the 4-hour 20 SMA, as well as a confluence of the 50 SMA on the same time frame. What appears to have been multiple breakout attempts actually turned into a small consolidation. And looking at our MFI, that would be our money flow index indicator, I can see that we are making lower lows on the indicator but higher lows on the price. So that usually indicates some divergence, which in this case would be hidden bearish divergence, telling us that we can look out for some bullish momentum, perhaps higher towards this 0.68 level of resistance of a bigger diagonal support line. It's worth noting that our projected monthly pivot level is sitting below us at the 0.65, let's call it the 0.658 level. So definitely an option whereby price can still come back and retest this level before breaking out of this channel and moving towards this upper diagonal level. Looking at an alternative scenario of price moving lower, it's possible that if price would break below this, let's call it the previous low of latter part of last week, low sitting at 0.656. If price were to break below this, we can look at price finding some support around about last week's pivot. That would be 0.652. And if that were to break down as well, we can see or expect at least some support on the 200 SMA and also this diagonal channel from last week. Yeah, my suspicion is that we will first see some bullish action, but in the scenario where some bearish action is observed, I believe we will quite briefly find support for the Australian dollar USD. Now looking at the USD to the Swiss franc, a new currency pair for our market overview series. Starting off with where I'm currently seeing price. Considering at the higher time frame, at the daily time frame, we can observe price having broken lower out of this again a pennant, or as we call a triangular consolidation, breaking lower and currently looking to find some support either at the level we currently are at or perhaps a bit lower. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, we can see that we do have this lower area of support in the form of a diagonal channel, telling us that it's likely that price might still retest this breakout level. And just considering where our projected pivot for this week are, and also our monthly pivot sitting right on that breakout level, I'm pretty confident that we will see a retest of this breakout level at 0.965, or actually let's just say 0.968. So yeah, that will definitely be an area to consider in terms of this pullback and retest of the breakout, and after which we might see further downside towards this 0.958 level of support, which is indicated on in purple. Just also considering where we see price move back into the channel and back into this triangle, we are sitting with overhead resistance at the 0.97 level. So at this stage, not likely that we will see price go much higher than this level, as this level does appear to offer some strong resistance, having offered previous periods of support. So for now, I'd just say look out for a retest of this breakout level, and then perhaps further weakness towards the purple level of support sitting on 0.958. So that will definitely be my view and what I'll be looking out for the US dollar Swiss franc. Now looking at the US dollar to Japanese yen, also a new Forex pair discussed for the first time in our market overview series. And in contrast to the US dollar to Swiss franc, we also saw a breakout out of this consolidation from last week, although we actually saw a very quick rebound back into this consolidation area with possible bearish traders getting trapped below this 200 SMA on the 4-hour. And in my view, this is actually quite bullish, and also considering the engulfing nature of this last, well, at least of the second last candle of Friday. So it's quite possible that we might even see a breakout higher out of this channel very quickly. And just looking at the pivots for the week to come and also the month. So our pivot sitting below us, but I believe that even with a brief retest of this 107.58 level, it's quite likely that we'll see a move higher with lots of short sellers getting trapped below this 200 and also 100 SMA levels. If we were to see a move higher, it's likely that we can see price move perhaps higher towards this new channel currently forming on the just quickly blue, yes. So it's very likely we can see a price move higher towards this level with the 108.7 and even the 108.6 to 108.7 level being our new level of overhead resistance. But if price were to respect this level of resistance where we are at currently, which is also in line with the current area of resistance, we will likely also see this level, the lower level of this consolidation again acting as support, and that will also be in confluence with the 200 100 SMA from where we saw the rejection last week. So levels to watch would definitely be this range as a break either above or below it will. I'd say I'd be careful to take a short trade below this level, considering the strong nature of the and bullish nature of this rejection, and rather focus on a breakout out of this consolidation area. Just briefly looking at the S&P 500, we saw a very bullish and also an engulfing candle on the close of Friday, with price starting to look a little bit overbought at this stage, although momentum still favors the upside. Just taking note of overhead resistance sitting at 3,001 at the 3,100 level. That will be a previous area of overhead resistance as well, and also closely coincides with this overhead area of support which forms this broadening channel. My view would be looking at our weekly pivots as well as our new monthly pivot. I'd say a retest of this 2,965 level is quite likely at this stage. Perhaps even seeing price moving even slightly lower to the 100 SMA, and moving taking us back into this range that we identified last week. The high of this week was actually the first measured target of the breakout of the consolidation discussed in our market overview for the S&P 500 last week. So I'd be a little skittish to consider long trade at this stage before we don't see another retest at least of this 2,980 level. And if price were to move back into this channel, it's possible that we'll see the lower part of this level, or the lower part of this consolidation range also being retested around about the 2,920 level. So yeah, not to spend too much time on the S&P 500. That is my current outlook for this market. Looking at US crude oil, we can see that price did indeed reach the upper limit of our range that we identified on our video last week. And the big question currently being, will we see a breakout out of this range, or perhaps a retracement and a move back into this consolidating range? Just looking at our new monthly pivot, that's the one indicated here in purple, we can see that it sits at least 2/3 down in this range and would be a likely target should price move back into this range, and perhaps also meeting with the 100 SMA on the 4-hour. My suspicion is that should this happen, we can perhaps expect a move higher again towards the top of this range, and then depending whether that scenario plays out, or perhaps we just move lower slightly towards the 54.10, let's call this the $54 range, and then see a move higher. That is also quite likely, and that will also take our measured move of this previous range to something like, just quickly project that upwards. So yeah, that will give us a price of at least $40 should price break up and go higher. So just also considering the trend line being formed overhead, so just be mindful of that as well. So yeah, I'd say the $40 level would be an upside target, and considering a downside target of around about the 29.80 level should we move lower back into this range. Looking at gold, we see that price decided to break out of this what appeared to have been a bull flag from last week, finding some overhead resistance at the weekly pivot level, and with looking at the last 4-hour candle from last week, seems to be coming back to retest this breakout level right at what would be our new monthly and weekly pivot levels, all confluencing along with the 100 SMA on the 4-hour. So yeah, definitely looking out at this 172, let's call it 17222, 1723 level for a retest, and then perhaps a move higher, breaking this flag, moving to the previous high of 1765, very likely target for this week. And depending on any news that might break in the week, during the week, we might even see price move as high as the overhead resistance level at $1,800. Should price move back into this downward channel, I believe we will quite briefly find support at the 200 SMA. That would be at 1,715 level, and also the previous low at about the 1,700 level. So yeah, not very likely at this stage that price would move much lower than the 1,700 level, but yeah, markets can and in most instances will do anything, but just from a purely technical perspective, definitely more likely that we'll see more bullish behavior from gold during this week. To conclude this week's market overview, we will be looking at Bitcoin. As discussed on our previous market overview, we did indeed see Bitcoin find support, very quickly moving back above the 200 SMA, and even moving back to the top of this consolidation, and this what appears to be a continuation pattern or pennant forming. So if we do indeed see price break above this overhead area of resistance, we will very likely, as a first stop, see that 10,000 level being retested, and if that level were to break, we will of course see our higher targets being reached. But not to get ahead of ourselves, at this stage it's likely that Bitcoin will look for further support, which it might find on this 200 SMA, 50 SMA conference area. And if I'm not mistaken, this is also the area where our monthly and weekly pivot levels currently reside. So look out at this 9,200 to 9,250 level. as this is a likely area for support for Bitcoin at this stage, and also the area from where Bitcoin will likely move higher to the top of this pennant. And if this were to break, we might see that 10,000 and higher targets being reached. In the likely event of Bitcoin breaking below this 200 SMA, we will first see the bottom of this diagonal line being retested, and if that doesn't hold, we will likely see the previous lows of 8,600 and even 8,300 being retested quite quickly. Although my stance on Bitcoin remains bullish at this stage. Well, that concludes our market overview for this week. I hope you find it useful. All the best with your trading. And if you have any questions or suggestions, remember, please send us a comment. And otherwise, I'll see you bright and early on Monday morning. Until then, trade smart and trade successful.